Next on the agenda, Ellen Snyder, Newmarket Open Space Conservation Plan, informational discussion. Welcome. Thanks for your patience.
No problem.
You've been there before.
Yeah. Different capacity now, I guess. I'm Ellen Snyder of Ibis Wildlife Consulting. I live in Newmarket at 26 Johnson Drive. And maybe a little background. New Hampshire Estuaries Project, which is based at UNH, but it's a federally funded program that works in the estuaries. And they have a grant program called the Technical Assistance Program. And what they did over the past few years is they identified through RFPs consultants in the region that could do different projects for towns. So open space plans, stormwater management plans. They've got sort of a suite of things that they thought towns would need funding for or need to get projects done under those categories. And so they got the funding, they identified the consultants, and then they put out the RFP then to the towns to say, you can apply to get these projects done. We will match the consultant to your project. So that's how this whole thing sort of works. And so back in, I forget exactly when, but Clay Mitchell put together a proposal with reps from each of the boards, Planning Board, George, and Rob, and I think it was really Rob and Clay, and then Drew Kefeber from the Open Space Commission put this proposal into New Hampshire Estuaries Project to complete the open space plan that Clay actually had started a number of years ago. So I don't know if you've all seen this, but Clay gave me a copy. But anyway, sort of get around to why I am. I was one of the consultants who was identified in this group of people that can be hired to do these projects. And New Hampshire Estuaries Project then has hired me to work with you, the town, to complete this project. So you don't have to fund it. New Hampshire Estuaries Project funds it. But there'll probably be some in-kind, just working with townspeople and volunteers to help get the project done. So that's sort of how we are at this point in time. And then what I did is put together the proposal that I think Sue gave each of you. So these are the details that I put together knowing what the town requested, and ran this by a few people to see if this is really what you want. So just sort of an overview of what the accomplishments are supposed to be is to take the draft open space plan that Clay, I have a date of January 2002, and I don't know if the planning board sort of reviewed this, or if he just sort of drafted this and then it never got to a finished point. But anyway, there is
2002. I don't think anybody.
Yeah, you folks probably weren't.
You on the board? No, you weren't on the board in 2002, right?
No.
No. So maybe at that point he did.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure he started as as part of the master plan update. His idea was that this open space plan would get completed and then it would be adopted by the planning board as a component of the master plan, and that can happen, anytime that you want to see it done. But the point of the open space plan is to sort of update the inventory of what the town's natural resources are. There was a inventory done many years ago. Then, of course, we had the Conservation Commission is involved in open space kinds of things. The planning board itself has adopted some zoning changes and things related to open space. We've had the Open Space Commission and the bond. We've protected some lands in town. So the Open Space Conservation Plan will sort of capture all of that. What's the current state of the natural resources in town, and then make new recommendations. Okay, what else should the town be thinking about in terms of open space conservation? And that could be more land protection, it could be education, it can be regulatory, it could be a whole suite of things, and the idea is to include all those kinds of options in the open space plan. So that's sort of the big overarching purpose of this project. In doing that, there'll be research into the existing town-owned conservation lands. And what we talked about, I'm going to be meeting with the Conservation Commission this Thursday night to sort of refine that, is to go into the files. There's a lot of lands that the town is responsible for, either in ownership or easement perhaps, and so it's a little chaotic in terms of what entirely the town's responsibilities, what do these lands have, what are the allowed public uses. So the idea is to capture all that information, organize it so that it's readily available for volunteers on boards, as well as in a format that could be put up on the website so the public could access that information. And then the Conservation Commission had been working on a brochure for public distribution that would highlight all the different conservation lands in town, so we help get that finished up. So those are sort of the main components of what this project would accomplish, and I think I have a timeline. So we're trying to get done by the end of this year, essentially early into January. So obviously you probably have some questions, but one of the things will be, I haven't read through this yet, what Clay had, but to find a way that we can communicate in terms of, is this draft pretty good? What kinds of things you really want to see in this open space plan? It was back in 2002, so there are obviously some new things that probably need to be included. But one way may be for me to pull out a table of contents and send that around, or get your feedback. Or I do have this electronically. It's a pretty hefty document, so I don't know if you need to see this whole thing right now. I may do some variations on it as well. So really open to your ideas and suggestions on how you might want to proceed. The other thing we thought about doing is maybe having a public input session sometime this fall. Not a public hearing, but just explain what this project's about, have maps, and there's lots of maps that the town has, and have people provide input. I know we did this back when we started the Open Space Commission and had the bond, invited people in to just provide their ideas of what they thought was important to protect. So this might be another good opportunity to do that.
Where would this stuff be stored? If you're going to file it and so forth, I mean, you're going to codify it too, right?
Yeah, there's, the Conservation Commission, maybe Rob could speak to it. I know there's a lot of files upstairs. I used to be on the Conservation Commission, back many years ago, and it's a little chaotic. It's not very easily accessible, but the Commission has bought a separate file cabinet, and we wanted to really create much more clear hard copy files, and then whatever material could make it accessible on the town website, or I think there's a town website, and now we could create the text, and then hopefully if there's a town webmaster, whoever maintains the town website, could then actually put it up on the website.
So you'd really would you have one file, or 3 files, or 5 files?
Well, you'd have a file for each town-owned property, because the town owns a bunch of properties, but all of them have different stewardship responsibilities, and some allow hunting, some may not allow hunting, some may allow snowmobiling, some may not, and I don't think it's really clear, based on conversations with the current Conservation Commission, what entirely are the responsibilities and allowed uses on all these properties, and really want to make them accessible to the public, so they know where they are, how they can use them, and also then what are the stewardship responsibilities that the town has.
Because the first thing you think of is put it in a library. But you put it in a library, you exclude it from this area. This area is where it probably should be, I think. I don't know what you people...
I can speak somewhat to that. Last year, somewhat upon Ellen's suggestion, the town formed a land management and stewardship committee, their sole purpose being to be the stewards of our conservation land. The group meets on a yearly basis, and I think that the place where we're at right now is we don't even know what we have responsibilities to, and this is sort of answering to that. And we see these files going in a file cabinet, and they're a subcommittee of the CC. We see it going to their file cabinet for the purpose of them being able to use it, and maybe another set that the planner will have, or the planner will have access to those as well. So this is centralizing the data, because right now I can tell you some properties, Clay has actually done a pretty good job as we've acquired properties to steal all the documentation that he can so that it didn't get lost. But Clay has some, I know that Kathy has some, Al has some. There's some everywhere, and there's no central place for all of this, and that's where Ellen comes in.
Where would you put it?
We have a file cabinet at the top of the stairs.
Where would you put the file cabinet, though?
It's at the top of the stairs, across on the opposite side of the building. It's been there for about a year now.
Is that a good place to keep it permanently, so people can use it?
Yeah. Yes.
But also, I think it's a good idea to place it somewhere where the public can access it after 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, I think that's her intention with the web.
Well, I think there's a...
I mean, they go a long ways away from that, right?
They want
Well, I think there's 2 levels here. I think there's something that the public can use, which could be in the library or on the website. And I think the level of detail, I could be wrong, you guys correct me, for this file cabinet is a little bit more than the public might need at this point. There's a lot more information that should be in details in there, the deed restrictions, and stewardship plans, and whatever else, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, there's a lot of historical stuff that goes with each property, some more than others, actually,
And
but,
that's
yeah.
not, I don't want to imply to mean that it's not public information per se, but it's not.
That's got to be policed. You just can't let people go in there and use it.
Right.
It's locked.
So-
Yeah,
So,
Yeah, no,
you're planning on doing a brochure that would probably give the information that the public would need about what is the access to these properties, what's allowable on the properties, hunting, fishing, cross-country skiing, whatever, no motorized vehicles. Am I on the right
yeah,
track here?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Look
But I-
like one of those cross hatches like they have at the state parks, where you have hiking here,
Right.
camping here.
Yeah.
boating.
Yeah, that'd be really useful.
Well, everybody's talking, and I shouldn't be the one that brings this up because I am not computer savvy, but use of a database, and this screams of a GIS database. Is that possible for the, I don't know if that's something,
If it's not part of this project, I will be doing that as volunteer.
because I mean,
That's what I do for a living, so.
That's why I didn't want to bring it up too. No, but that's what it,
Yeah, I think we can talk about this some more. Maybe we can talk on Thursday with the Conservation Commission. I'm also going to meet with the Open Space Commission because they, of course, have been involved in some of these projects too. And I think it's a trade-off. I mean, in some ways, you almost want it in two places because you want the boards to be able to access it. Like the Conservation Commission is going to, you think, constantly want to get into the files, but you also want a safe,
Yeah.
secure place with the originals too. So maybe we need to be thinking about two sets of hard copies. One is sort of a working set that can be used because you are going to be going out in the field and checking properties, and one is the permanent file that is
Yeah.
secure either in the planner's office or, which is probably the logical place for it. Am I talk about that. I think that's,
what we're gonna do is, consolidate all the stewardship, am I saying that right, stewardship plans in this?
right, yeah, sort of compile all the information because I personally know that stuff is in a lot of different places, yeah. And the other, so the other piece of this is sort of, once you can think about, okay, let's make sure we understand what we have. You know, the Open Space Commission has pretty well spent the bond, and so they're thinking, okay, what's next? You know, what should they be thinking about? So this will be also future, you know, what should we be doing in town in terms of future conservation efforts? So does that sound?
sounds good.
You mentioned something similar, that this will have recommendations for things to do in the future. If you're gonna have those recommendations, are you also gonna have ideas for how to implement those?
Right.
What's the best way to?
Yeah. Yeah, because it may be land protection, it may be some education, it may
Right.
be regulatory changes, it could be, yeah. And there'll be some pretty specific recommendations, not necessarily like, we'll buy Mr. So-and-so's land, because we have to talk about, you know, how, you know, sometimes you can't be that specific, but where, you know, this area of town, and then where might you go for grants, or what would be the best steps to protecting this part of town, or something like that, so. And there's some new information that's coming out from the State Wildlife Action Plan, has some new maps of the region, and there's a coastal conservation plan that's coming out, so there's some new other data that can help guide this in terms of where the town might be thinking about in terms of additional conservation, but, yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions? Ellen? Sounds good.
Is there a way that we can see, I mean, you have a little up on us because you were involved in this little process, some members do. Is there a way that we could, okay, is there a way that we could, she just had the folder in her hand that Clay had in 2002 with information on it. Is there a way that we can read that?
Sure,
I mean, that probably would help some of it.
yeah.
Is that in the conservation office?
Email it to us.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a big
Wow.
thing.
Well,
And they make copies and.
I know
Yeah,
Sue
well,
has it. and
I have
she-
it, he gave it to me on a CD, so I could give that to you, and you could
Yeah.
put it somewhere, and you could print out another version and have a look at it. But what actually would be really helpful, then, if we want to mark it up and say, geez, we need to add this or that or something, because I think it was a pretty still draft form. I think it's still going to need a fair bit of work and update. But the other thing, I think it would be good for us, or you to think about when you would like me to come back with some draft information that you could comment on. Maybe you want to do like a chapter at a time or something, so it's not like I write for 6 months and then all of a sudden I show you this thing and like, whoa. So maybe we could, take a little
Good
bit of
idea.
time
Yep.
each session, or however it's really up to you how you want to do it, but we could do a couple of chapters or something, or,
When you say chapters, dealing with what?
well, let's see what let's just go with what Clay had. Purpose, definition, goals, that's pretty straightforward. Benefits of protecting open space, inventory of existing conservation lands, criteria for prioritizing lands for open space, so new possible protection efforts, priority conservation areas, so where in town are really important areas for conservation, education, mechanisms for protection, regulatory changes, other recommendations, maps. So I'm not sure I would order it this way, but again, I'll work on the, maybe a different table of contents, but.
How up to date is the inventory, for instance, of town-owned land?
I think it's pretty good. That's one thing I think Clay put a fair bit of time into the inventory. We may need to fine tune. Sometimes it's unclear if the town owns an easement or if it's a subdivision easement and the homeowners own it. So we want to clarify some of those parcels. But I think we actually know most of the.
I found an approach this week that might help us.
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
I found an approach this week that might help.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
I'll pass that along.
And Rob has offered to volunteer his GIS expertise to help with the mapping, which will be good because I don't do that part. But so we'll have maps in the plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think well, at least Clay had GIS, we have GIS,
We have a GIS system.
that Clay knew how to operate.
Right.
I mean, I think we have to start moving, file cabinets are great, and I don't mind file cabinets, but I think we have to start
Right.
moving towards the
Yeah.
NAT and keep it an
There's a-
electronic database.
Yeah, there's a really great system on the web, if you haven't been there. It's called Granite. It's a statewide database you can go
Yes.
to, and you can go to the state of New Hampshire, go to Newmarket, focus
Yep.
in, and you can click on, it has conservation lands. It's not, they have to update it like once a year, so it's not the current lands, but it's really cool. You click on it, you get the information, ownership. There's some other information you can get. You can overlay aerial photo or topographic features for the town. So, we can either think about, is there a way to augment what Granite is doing, or can the town, add some features or something? So there's a lot of opportunity for that.
Yeah, I think Clay, if I remember right, we talked about this when I first got on the board. Clay was very concerned about like the standalone piece of land that the town owns, and they're not taking care of it, so to speak.
Mm-hmm, right.
And it's being abused and overused, or how it was used. He was very concerned about
Although,
that.
If you're not maintaining your stewardship, there are penalties involved, is there?
No, I mean, they'll sort of call you. You should be checking those parties. But I don't really the impression. I think the town, Newmarket's done a very good job with its conservation lands. It's just that, it's a
Well, we need to keep
volunteer,
doing that.
it's a volunteer thing, so.
Well, there is some, I forget the exact terminology, but reverse transfer of ownership to some extent. So if there's a piece of property that the town owns and someone maintains it for X amount of years, they can make a claim towards that land. So that
Yeah,
would be
there-
something that this might help with.
There are some issues here and there, and it helps you, I think, there are a few enforcement issues that we know about that this will help clarify that, I think,
As to coming back to us, I don't know if you want, I think that's up to you as to when you're moving
Okay.
this along. I would suggest that as you get to the point where you think you want us to start reviewing the drafts, I tell you to be put on the next planning board agenda, but if we have a full agenda, that's not fair to you. We could always, once you contact me, we could do a workshop.
yeah, let's look at that and see what.
That way we're focused
Yeah.
on one thing
Yeah,
and
yeah.
not looking at a.
Is email communication possible, or is that not allowed to, can we communicate through email and share information that way too?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Does everybody have email?
I think all our emails are, I think.
Have you got a list?
If you
Yeah.
send something to Sue,
Yeah.
it'll.
Sue has a
Okay,
list.
Sue can pass it on through email,
Sue
okay,
has a list.
okay. I work a lot through email, so it's very handy to do that. And that way I can share things and you can, at your leisure, look at them or something and get some feedback.
Yeah, but if we're gonna discuss, I think we need to discuss in
Right.
public, so I don't
Yeah.
mind that.
Okay,
Getting the copies for our review that way, but we should either have a workshop or a regular session to
Yep.
do discussions.
yeah, good.
We could probably also do some sort of liaison thing if you wanted, so you could update us via email and someone could come and speak to that, but that's up to you.
Okay,
So that you don't end up being here till 9:30.
that's all right. I mean, I live in Newmarket, so it's not, it's not too much of an issue, but, okay. Sounds good to me.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Other business. I guess there were a couple of items we should. Release of agenda.
Bob?
First was the question you had concerning.
Yeah, the urban service boundary,
Right.
which was brought up.
What is the status of that with the town council?
It was scheduled for the last workshop, which I believe was a joint workshop with the school board, which kind of made that go away, unfortunately, so. We've got it, I don't know, have you received a copy of it to read?
The one from the attorney that was mocked up?
Yeah, have you received, I mean, that's what we've got, that's where we're at. We haven't discussed it as a council yet. I presume we're probably gonna do it at our next workshop next
When is
week.
your next workshop?
Next week, next Wednesday.
Wasn't like a-
That's the 16th.
I will be gone, but I won't be here, but, okay. The other business is that we need 2 reps to the capital improvement plan, correct? Program.
We need 1 rep and 1 alternate.
For Kathy Castle's things that we need 2.
I know last year we had 1 rep and 1 alternate, but that's fine, I didn't see that.
Need to appoint 2 members to the respective committees to the CIP.
What did you appoint me to, Bob, last time?
Space
Conservation?
Commission.
What was it? Open space? Who's supposed to get in touch with me in terms of meetings and so forth on that?
Keith Farmer,
Keith Offer?
right?
Yeah, and they're done a quarterly meeting, so that may be why you haven't heard one. I believe the next one is in September.
She implied 2.
September 11th.
September 11th.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know last year we had 1 alternate, 1 full member, which I thought is what.
Now, you sit on it right now, correct?
I did last year as an alternate. It's a whole lot of meetings in October and November. And then probably November and December, and then pretty much nothing else.
When you say a whole lot of meetings, what's that mean?
1 every 2 weeks.
Yeah. Janice?
Do I have any volunteers before I appoint?
If threatened with hot oil and pulling of toenails, I might consider doing it.
What time does the open space meet?
They don't mean to move
7?
this away.
Oh, boy, that's bad.
No, I think it was Wednesday nights almost every time.
I was gonna ask you to stay on since you,
It's dependent.
so I only need 1 other person. And it could be an alternate.
People are looking in your direction.
Peter's not looking at you, though, is he?
No, I didn't.
Everybody
Could
looks
be
down
John or-
suddenly.
Well, Mike's already on the
Everybody knows.
town council, so John, Bob, Chet's on open space.
Suddenly, everyone is mute.
And I'll tell you the truth, I'd do it, but I know my work schedule coming up, that might be tight. And I don't want to make commitments to something I can't make.
I'm out of town for 4 weeks, half of October and half of November. So depending on when the meetings are, I'm not going to be in the country, so.
Peter, do you think you could,
What is it?
capital improvement, actually, it's a very important, we've had this discussion with Al Dixon. It sets up, it's a capital improvement program that sets up the capital improvement program for the town, in the sense of sidewalks, road improvements, drainage improvements.
Vehicles, how the vehicles.
So it's the implementation of your master plan. And if you have a good master plan, what do you want done in the town? that's the theory of what you want done, then you have to match it up with funding.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's only so much funds, so you gotta prioritize your work, is what I get out of it. So this is an actual program that sets aside money and prioritizes the work that we believe should be done in the town. Adding more sidewalks over here, et cetera. And it's done in October and November, so it can be brought forth to the budget committee for consideration. All right?
It's a recommendation. It doesn't actually set aside any money, but we say, this road needs to get paved in 10 years, and it's gonna cost $70,000. Let's set aside $7,000 every year. And we go through everything in town that's gonna need to be replaced. So this fire truck has 8 years left on it, and it's gonna cost X amount, divide it, and that's what you set aside. The idea being exactly what George said, that, we're able to maintain our goals.
There is a list, you have a list of all this equipment that you go
Yes,
through.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's all dated and so forth, so it's basically just sitting there going through the list. And,
It isn't going to take a lot of arm twisting.
No.
I'm glad to do it as much as I can. The problem is that my schedule is not fixed. And so I might be traveling and I might not. So if that, if we can live with that, then I'm fine.
If you're willing to say yes, we'll live with it.
All right, well,
Last year, there was very few of us who showed up at every meeting.
Okay. All right.
By very few, I think there was one person that showed up at every meeting, maybe two. 3 probably.
Roy and Rob Prime. I'll send them to the cap. And, if something comes up where, you can always call me, I could always act as an alternate, sit in. But it is, a conversation I had with Al, he views it as one of the very strategic program of the town, because it really does mesh all the different visions and how do you, one of the things I've been struggling with here is you have a master plan, you have all these ideas, but how do you implement them? It's nice to have the ideas, but you got to focus them and make them move forward. And this is a program that makes recommendations to do that. And that's what this board really should be doing. We as a planning board should be planning. We should be looking to see what has to be done in this town and what needs to be done in terms of regulations, zoning, funding for different improvement programs. So it meshes well with what we're doing.
It used to be a responsibility of the planning board, and then it was taken off to be a subgroup, as I understand.
Right.
So that's where we're at now. It involves a couple people, the budget committee, the town planner, our, I want to say accountant, but I know that's not the proper word.
Finance director.
No,
Finance director. So it's a conglomeration of a lot of people in town who have a stake in it.
I think Leo and I are the first ones to do it. 4 years ago, we started it upstairs. Just a whole bunch of papers. I imagine it's better organized now.
So you're saying you have experience and you want to replace me?
I can't do it, or I would. I have a problem on the 19th, where I have a facilities committee at the same time. And I have to go to the facilities committee meeting. So I probably won't be at the planning board meeting.
Check, we're fine.
All right. You guys can take care of it.
The only other thing was an item that we sort of pushed aside. It all depends what you guys want to do. There was an issue about too many apartments, the question of apartments.
Yes.
You guys want to talk about that now?
Yeah, I think we have, I guess, John, what did you figure, probably about 58% of our housing?
53, 54%.
53, 54% of our housing is apartments.
As of
Yeah.
2002 data, 2002, 2003 data.
There's a fella coming in on the 15th, which is next Tuesday, which is New Hampshire Advantage. His name is Peter Fransone, I think it's called. And he deals with statistics and housing and so forth, and he's going to give a speak to the facilities group with the school facility group in terms of the housing and so forth. So it'd be kind of interesting if people wanted to go. It's open to the public. It's next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. People should go and listen to this.
In conjunction with that, I don't want to interrupt your apartment concept, but I'm sorry. I was going to ask, has the school board ever come to the planning board? I can't recall this. Will the planning board have given the school board figures on our built-out, on our land inventory?
We have all that.
Within last year?
We have it all.
You sure?
Yes.
And how many
There's always a
housing units
conversation
can you
between,
Would that
Clay
create-
Mitchell's been involved with the whole facilities group right along from day to day.
Okay, so I
So,
mean,
yeah.
they have been given
Yeah.
out what the projected
Yeah.
build-out of
Yes.
Newmarket would be,
Yes.
permits for single housing
Yes.
resident.
Right.
Okay, because that's important, I mean, as us
Right.
as a planning board, to
Mhm.
provide that information, so I didn't,
No, Clay, as a board, I don't think we provide it, but Clay has been.
Clay has, okay.
Yeah, the issue, of course, is the school, new high school. And I think you can't get enough statistics to bring before the people to argue the issues. And that's what you got to do. You got to argue these issues. What are we going to do? You know. So I think the ideas of apartments, of how many you have, is going to be brought up. I'm certain, and I'm going to bring it up.
Yeah, I would comment that a lot of the people that are talking to me, calling me, emailing me, and so on, that's one of the concerns, is the number of apartments. If you read the master plan, I believe it's chapter 5, it recognizes this. It encourages the planning board and the town council to develop processes or ordinances or whatever that ultimately will bring if I remember correctly, ultimately bring the ratio of apartments to single-family homes back in line with the seacoast area and the state of New Hampshire. And if you look at the towns around the Great Bay, we lead in rental units. And I think we need to really address that. There are a lot of people that are not happy, and you have an overload from a rental unit, you have overloads on the infrastructure, on the police, on the fire, on the water. And there's comments in the master plan that whether apartments and rental units pay their fair share of taxes. So these are issues that are going to come back to see us, I think, with the growth of Newmarket.
I think, I could be wrong on this, because I don't know the history of it, but I believe some of that was taken care of with some rezoning. And it's not as easy to put apartments in any longer in this town. That issue in the master plan, I think, was attempted to be addressed. I could be wrong, I have to ask Clay. And the reason I know that is because of the Cherry Hill application. I mean, those no Cherry Hill, those apartments up on Bennett Way that just went up. And there was a whole ruckus about that, well, why we allow that. That's because they were already applied for and approved back in 88 or 85. The only one that wasn't was the last one we looked at, but it was a matter of what they were coming back with was that we want to demolish the set of apartments there and build another set, and they were going to ask for 6 more units. The trade-off was, well, we could look at the eyesore or let them build a better, more efficient, better-looking apartment, and that's what we did as a board. And as it turned out, they didn't use the 6 more units because that thing came before us so many times, I can't remember the whole history, but it eventually ended up being only 24 units anyway. So, but that whole issue came up, and matter of fact, they were in a zone where it wasn't allowed any longer, but because they were existing already, we let it go.
Well, water became an issue with that particular project also. Because they're going to add 6 more units or adding 6 more homes.
Right.
That we made an argument. But-
So I think, I don't know for sure, because I don't know the whole history, but it's a valid point, and we should when
Yeah.
town planning comes aboard, we'll ask them to look at that, but.
So it's going to be interesting to hear what this fellow has to say. It was in the Exeter newsletter.